The knock on my door that morning didn't sound like kindness. It sounded like guilt wrapped in politeness. I opened it to find my son, Ethan, standing there with a bouquet of lilies and a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Behind him, his wife, Vanessa, hovered in a tailored cream coat, sunglasses still on indoors, her perfume filling the hallway like a warning. "Happy Mother's Day." "Mom," Ethan said, handing me the flowers. "We just wanted to check in. You're still getting the $4,000 every month, right?" My heart stuttered. "4,000?" I repeated. For a moment, the world around me went quiet. The ticking clock, the smell of coffee, even the morning light seemed to stop moving. I hadn't seen a single dollar. For months, I'd been stretching the little pension my late husband left me, living on coupons and quietly thanking the church for their grocery baskets. I forced a smile, pretending I hadn't just felt the ground shift beneath me. "The church has been helping me manage," I whispered. Ethan's expression faltered. He looked confused. Then, almost on cue, Vanessa stepped forward with a perfect laugh. Smooth, practiced. "Oh, sweetie, I brought the cash every month. Maybe you forgot? You know, age can be tricky sometimes." Her tone was sugar over venom. I said nothing, just studied her. The expensive nails, the diamond watch, the polished perfection that hid something rotten. I knew lies when I saw them. Ethan looked between us, uneasy. "Vanessa, you've been bringing it, right?" he asked. "Of course," she said, with that same dazzling smile. "Your mom probably just misplaced it." That word, misplaced, burned in my chest. I'd misplaced nothing. Not money, not memory, and not the truth. I smiled faintly and said, "Maybe you're right, dear. Maybe I just forgot, but inside I knew. This wasn't forgetfulness. It was theft wrapped in family. And by the time they left that morning, I'd already made a promise to myself. I was going to find out exactly where that money went and make them face what they'd done, even if it meant tearing open the very home I once called family. After they left, silence filled the house, the kind that feels heavy, almost alive. I stood by the window holding the bouquet Ethan brought. The lilies were beautiful, but all I could see was the lie blooming between their petals. $4,000 a month. 8 months. $32,000 that vanished into thin air. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the old house echoed questions I didn't want to face. Maybe Vanessa really did forget. Maybe Ethan made a mistake. Or maybe... No, I couldn't finish the thought. I didn't want to believe my son, my only child, could be that blind. The next morning, I dressed neatly, grabbed my worn purse, and took the bus downtown to First Horizon Bank. The young teller smiled politely as I handed her my passbook. "Could you please check if there have been any transfers from Ethan Cole? He says he's been sending me money every month." She typed for a moment, her cheerful expression fading. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Cole. There haven't been any deposits from that account." My stomach dropped. "Are you sure?" She nodded. "The last deposit was a small interest payment in March. That's all." I thanked her and stepped outside, my hands trembling around the slip of paper she'd given me. The Texas heat pressed down like a weight, but I felt cold inside. $32,000 gone. Not missing, taken. By the time I got home, the truth had settled like dust after a storm. Vanessa hadn't forgotten. She'd stolen. And my son, the same boy who once promised to take care of me forever, didn't even know. That night, I took out my old ledger, the one I used back when I worked part-time as a bookkeeper. I opened a fresh page and wrote in slow, steady letters, May 14th. Ethan said I receive $4,000 monthly. Vanessa claims she brings it. Bank confirms nothing. Something's wrong. I sat back, staring at the words. They looked small on the page, but they were the start of something big. Something I couldn't turn back from. I didn't know it yet, but by writing that single line, I had already declared war. And this time, I wasn't going to lose quietly. For the next few weeks, I played the part of the quiet, forgetful mother, the one Vanessa thought I was. I smiled, nodded, served coffee when she stopped by, and let her believe her lies were working. But every word she spoke, I wrote down. I turned my old grocery notebook into what I now called the Book of Truth. Each visit had its own page. The date, the time, the exact words she said, her tone, her expressions, even the perfume she wore. Every detail mattered. June 3rd, Vanessa brought cookies. Claimed the bank is just slow. No envelope, no proof. Smiled too much. June 25th, she called. Said she's in a charity event. Heard restaurant music in the background. Lied again. At night, I'd reread those lines under the lamplight, feeling my heart harden like cooling glass. I wasn't writing out of anger anymore. I was gathering evidence. Proof that truth was stronger than pretense. Then one Saturday morning, as I watered the small patch of roses my husband once planted, I saw her white SUV pull into the driveway. She stepped out in a pale blue dress, holding a box of macarons and that same practiced smile. "Mother," she greeted, "you look lovely. I was just passing by and thought I'd check on you." I wiped my hands on my apron. "How kind. You're always so thoughtful." Her gaze swept across the porch, at the old swing, the cracked paint, the worn welcome mat. "I'll talk to Ethan about renovating this place. You deserve better than this, truly." Her words were polished, but her eyes were calculating. As she handed me the box, I asked softly, "Did you bring this month's money too, dear?" For just a heartbeat, her mask slipped. Then she laughed, airy and sharp. "Oh, silly me. I left it in the car. I'll bring it next time," I smiled politely. "Of course. I'll note that down." Her head tilted. "Note it down?" "Just a reminder," I said calmly, "so I don't forget." Her laugh faded. For the first time, I saw something flicker in her eyes. Not guilt, but fear. When her car disappeared down the street, I sat on the porch and wrote in my notebook, July 2nd. Vanessa lied again. Left money in the car, fear visible. The cracks are showing, and as I closed the notebook, I whispered to myself, "You've underestimated the wrong old woman." The next morning, I couldn't shake the feeling that Vanessa's confidence came from something bigger than just lying. She wasn't careless, she was covered, and that meant someone had built her a safety net. I decided to find out what it was. At noon, I took the bus downtown again. This time not to the teller, but to the bank's main office. The manager, a kind man named Mr. Graves, had known me for years. When I asked if there might be another account under my name, he frowned. "What do you mean, Mrs. Cole? You only have your savings account here. Could someone open one without my knowledge?" I asked quietly. "If they had my ID or personal details?" He hesitated. "It's rare, but not impossible. If someone forged your signature or used a photocopy of your ID, it could slip through." His words sent a chill straight through me. He offered to check the system. A few minutes later, his expression shifted. "This can't be right," he murmured. "There is another account under your name. Opened 8 months ago." My throat tightened. "That's impossible. It lists the same address, but a different phone number." He turned the monitor slightly toward me. There it was. My name, my address, but not my number, and the signature, a copy of mine, perfect, but wrong. I knew that loop in the L. I'd written it thousands of times, but not like that. Someone had imitated it. "Who opened this account?" I asked, my voice trembling. He sighed, lowering his tone. "I can't officially tell you that without a subpoena, but the opening document lists a co-signer named Vanessa Cole." My heart went still. The name hung in the air like a thunderclap. I thanked him, left the building, and walked straight into the sunlight. But everything looked different now, sharper, crueler. Cars passed, people laughed, but the world felt suddenly dishonest. Vanessa hadn't just lied. She'd forged, stolen, and built her crime in my name. That night, I added a new entry in my notebook, my handwriting trembling, but firm. July 15th, discovered second account under my name. Forged signature, co-signer, Vanessa. Then, for the first time, I didn't just write the truth. I underlined it, and beneath that line, I wrote something else. She's not stealing money anymore. She's stealing my identity. I closed the book, turned off the light, and sat in silence. The war had officially begun. 2 days later, while I was sorting through old bills at the kitchen table, the phone rang. "Mrs. Cole?" a polite male voice said. "My name's Daniel Ward. I'm the chief accountant at your son's company. I hope you don't mind me calling. Ethan mentioned you might have some questions about his transfers." For a second, I couldn't speak. "Ethan mentioned me?" That meant he'd at least asked. I steadied my voice. "Yes, Mr. Ward. My son says he's been sending me money every month, but I haven't seen a cent." He paused for a beat, then said quietly, "Mrs. Cole, may I visit you this afternoon? It's probably better if we talk in person." When he arrived, I expected a slick corporate type. Instead, I found a man in his 50s, with tired eyes and a briefcase that had seen too many years of work. There was something honest in the way he moved. Calm, careful, like someone who'd spent his life counting truth in numbers. We sat at the same table where I'd once served Ethan birthday cake. Daniel opened his briefcase, revealing a thin folder. "Mrs. Cole, I looked into the company's records. Your son has indeed been sending $4,000 every month, directly from his personal account." "Then where did it go?" I whispered. He hesitated, then slid a document toward me. "To an account listed under the name Helen Cole. Your name. But the receiving account number doesn't match your bank." I stared at the page. "So the money went into the fake account?" He nodded slowly. "Yes, ma'am. And according to our internal logs, that account was verified by your daughter-in-law's authorization. Vanessa's name appears on the paperwork." For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The only sound was the hum of the refrigerator and the low whistle of the wind outside. Daniel leaned forward, his voice low but steady. "Mrs. Cole, I've seen a lot in my career, but this is personal fraud. If you'd like, I can help you build a case." Quietly, I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Why would you help me?" He gave a faint smile. "Because I've seen what greed does to good families, and because your son doesn't deserve to lose his mother to someone else's lies." I felt my eyes sting. I nodded slowly. "Then let's do it right. Every detail, every transfer, every lie." He gathered his papers, looked me in the eye, and said, "We'll make her truth-proof, Mrs. Cole." After he left, I sat there in silence, staring at the folder he'd given me. For months I'd felt powerless, but now, for the first time, I had something stronger than anger. I had evidence, and an ally. I opened my notebook and wrote, July 20th, met Daniel Ward. Confirmed transfers. Proof found. The truth finally has a witness. Then beneath it, one final line. She built her lies in my name. I'll burn them down with hers. I spent the week moving like someone arranging chess pieces. The kitchen became my war room. The old oak table, the one with the shallow burn mark from a long ago candle, was polished until it shone. My best china came out of the cupboard. I folded napkins the way my mother showed me years ago, careful creases like small promises. I invited them both for Sunday dinner, with the same ease I once used to call the neighbor ladies over for pie. Nothing special, I told Ethan when I asked him to come. Just family. He agreed, unaware he was walking into a quiet cross-examination. I told only Daniel and Reverend Porter the plan. Daniel would bring the bank statements folded in his briefcase. The Reverend would be there as a witness, a calm presence who knew how to steer people when the truth needed saying out loud. I wanted witnesses, not weapons. When they arrived, Vanessa looked like she always did. Perfect hair, perfect shoes, a smile that belonged on a billboard. Ethan carried a bouquet of daisies, the nervous energy of a man trying to fix a life he barely understood. He hugged me like he used to as a boy and said, "Mom, it smells like home." It tightened something in my chest and made me steady. We ate like a family pretending everything was normal. I asked about work, small talk, the new neighborhood. Vanessa laughed and deflected. Ethan fidgeted, eyes landing on my ledger in the corner where I'd placed it intentionally. He asked about it, and I answered, lightly, like a woman who was simply keeping records. When dessert came, I invited Reverend Porter to say grace. He did, and his voice filled the room, steady and soft, and gave me a moment to breathe. Then, as if the moment had been planned by fate itself, Daniel cleared his throat and set a neat stack of papers on the table. The fork paused midair. Vanessa's lip tightened the way a seam pulls before it bursts. "Ethan," I said, voice small but clear, "do you remember the monthly transfers you set up for me?" He looked down at the papers, then at Vanessa. "Yes, Mom, I did." Daniel slid the first page forward. The neat print showed dates, amounts, a recipient name that matched mine, and an account number that did not. I watched Vanessa for any sign of remorse. Instead, she smiled the smile of a performer about to improvise, and her fingers trembled, just enough for me to see. The air in the room changed. Something fragile was about to break. Tonight, the quiet would stop being patient. Tonight, the truth would start to speak, and someone would have to answer. Vanessa's laugh sounded rehearsed. "Oh, this is silly," she said lightly, eyes flicking toward Ethan. "The banks must have messed up. You know how these systems are." Daniel didn't even blink. "I've double-checked with both institutions, Mrs. Cole," he said calmly. "The funds didn't go missing. They went exactly where they were told to. To your account," I added softly. For a moment, no one breathed. Ethan turned to her, confusion clouding his face. "Vanessa, what is he talking about?" She gave a quick, nervous chuckle. "Sweetheart, please. It's obviously a mistake. I just helped your mom set up the transfer months ago. Maybe I cut in gently. Maybe I forgot. Maybe I misplaced $32,000. Her words died in her throat. Daniel opened another folder. He laid down copies of the forged authorization forms. My name in looping cursive that wasn't mine. Ethan's eyes darted from the paper to Vanessa. "That's Mom's signature," he said weakly. "Isn't it?" "No," I said. "It's hers." Vanessa's face blanched. "Ethan, I did it to simplify things." "I didn't think? My voice rose for the first time. "You forged my name, opened an account, and took every dollar my son sent, and you didn't think?" The silence that followed was thick and alive. Ethan's breathing grew uneven. I could see his denial breaking apart like glass. "Tell me it's not true," he said, his voice shaking. "Vanessa, please, tell me it's not." Her eyes darted around the room, hunting for sympathy that wasn't there. "I just borrowed it," she whispered finally. "I was going to return it." Daniel's voice was quiet but cold. "Borrowing doesn't require a forged identity, Mrs. Cole." Her mask cracked. "You don't understand," she snapped, voice rising. "Ethan never paid attention to the accounts. I handled everything. I did what I had to do to keep us afloat." Ethan slammed his fist on the table. The sound was sharp enough to make the candles flicker. "By stealing from my mother?" Vanessa froze, tears filling her eyes. But I saw them for what they were. Survival, not remorse. The room went still again. The kind of stillness that comes before something changes forever. Ethan pushed back his chair slowly. "You need to leave," he said, his voice low, almost shaking. Now, she looked at him stunned. "Ethan, I said leave." And as her heels clicked toward the door, I felt no triumph, only the ache of something sacred breaking. When the door shut, the quiet returned, but it wasn't the same kind anymore. It was the silence that follows truth, raw, heavy, and irreversible. Ethan sat down slowly, staring at nothing. "Mom," he whispered, voice hoarse. "How could I have been so blind?" I reached across the table and took his hand. "Because you trusted the wrong person, son. And that doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. But inside I knew this wasn't over. The money could be recovered. The truth had been spoken. But healing, that was going to take longer." The next morning, the house felt quieter than it ever had. No laughter, no phone ringing, no background hum of comfort. Just silence, thick and heavy, like dust after a collapse. Ethan had stayed the night on the couch, his eyes swollen, his voice barely above a whisper when he said, "Mom, I'm sorry. I really didn't know." I didn't answer right away. I just placed a cup of tea in front of him. Some truths didn't need words, only time. Later, after he left to figure things out, I sat at that same table and stared at the cold coffee ring Vanessa's wineglass had left on the wood. It looked like a scar, A small, perfect reminder of everything false that had once sat at my table. At noon, the phone rang. It was Daniel. "Mrs. Cole," he said, his voice careful. "I've spoken to our legal team. There's enough evidence for a criminal case. Fraud, forgery, identity theft, all of it." My stomach turned. I had dreamed of justice, but hearing the words out loud made it real and painful. "I don't want revenge, Mr. Ward," I said quietly. "I just want her lies off my name." "That's exactly what this will do," he replied. "But we'll need to move fast before she tries to destroy the paper trail." By evening, I called Amelia Hart, a lawyer Daniel recommended. A sharp, calm woman who spoke with the precision of someone who'd seen every kind of betrayal. She came the next morning, her dark suit immaculate, her tone gentle. "Mrs. Cole, you're strong for doing this. Most victims your age are too afraid to stand up." I smiled faintly. Fear used to be my routine. Not anymore. Together, we gathered every document, every bank statement, every page from my notebook. Amelia flipped through the entries, eyes widening at how detailed they were. "You could teach half my interns a thing or two about record keeping," she said. That night, I placed all the files inside an old wooden box and slid it under my late husband's photo frame. His smile stared back at me, the same quiet encouragement he always had when I doubted myself. "Frank," I whispered to the photo, "you always said truth finds its way home. Looks like it finally has." When I turned off the light, I didn't feel victorious. I felt steady, like a ship that had weathered the worst of the storm and was finally steering toward calm waters. Still, deep down, I knew there was one more storm left to face, the one that happens in court, under oath with the world watching. The courthouse smelled faintly of coffee and nerves. I sat on the wooden bench outside courtroom 3, hands folded around my purse, heart steady but alive. Daniel sat beside me, papers neatly organized in his briefcase. Across the hall, Vanessa paced like a caged animal, her lawyer whispering to her, her perfect image now cracked. The cream coat was gone, the diamonds too. What was left was the truth. Bare and uncomfortable. Ethan hadn't come inside yet. He'd called that morning, voice raw. "Mom, I'll be there. I just need a minute before I see her like that." I told him to take his time. Some wounds didn't need rushing. When they called my name, I stood. The room was bright and cold, every sound amplified, the shuffle of papers, the squeak of shoes, the low murmur of lawyers preparing their lines. The judge, an older woman with a calm but sharp face, nodded for me to approach. "Mrs. Cole," she said, "please explain in your own words how this began." I took a breath. "It began with trust," I said quietly, "and it ended with my name on a fake bank account." I told her everything, the months of silence, the fake transfers, the forged signature, the dinner that exposed it all. I didn't cry, not once. I spoke the way truth demands to be spoken, clearly, calmly, without hate. Because hate doesn't heal anything, truth does. Vanessa's lawyer objected twice, tried to twist details, but Daniel's evidence was airtight. Every deposit, every forged form, every screenshot was dated and verified. When the judge asked Vanessa to speak, her voice cracked on the first sentence. "I never meant to hurt her," she said. "I just wanted control. I thought I could fix things before anyone noticed." The judge leaned forward. "You forged her identity and stole $32,000. You didn't fix anything, Mrs. Cole. You built your comfort on someone else's name." Ethan entered then, quietly, like a man walking through smoke. His eyes met mine, then Vanessa's. "Tell the truth," he said, voice breaking. "Please." And finally she did. She confessed. Not with dignity, but with defeat. When it was over, the judge's words landed like a gentle hammer. "All funds will be returned to Mrs. Cole. The defendant is sentenced to probation and restitution, with a permanent mark of fraud on her record." The gavel struck once, clean, final, merciful. Outside the courtroom, Ethan walked beside me without speaking. His face was pale, grief mixed with relief. After a long silence, he said, "Mom, I don't deserve your forgiveness." I looked at him and smiled faintly. Forgiveness isn't something you deserve, son. It's something you grow into. He nodded, eyes glistening. I'll spend the rest of my life growing then. As we stepped into the sunlight, I realized I wasn't carrying anger anymore, just air, warm and light. But deep inside, I knew this wasn't the end. This was the beginning of something cleaner, something finally free. The weeks after the trial felt strangely still, as if life had been holding its breath and was now slowly exhaling. The tension that once filled my home was gone, replaced by the sound of simple things. The kettle whistling, the creak of the porch swing, the distant laughter of children on their way to school. For the first time in months, I could breathe without second-guessing the air. Ethan started visiting more often. At first, he barely spoke, just helped around the house, fixed the broken railing, replaced the porch light. One evening, while we were sitting outside watching the sunset paint the sky, he finally said, "Mom, I've been going to therapy. I need to understand why I didn't see what was happening." I reached over and squeezed his hand. "You saw what you wanted to believe. That's not weakness, Ethan. That's love." He smiled, but it was a sad kind. The smile of a man rebuilding himself from the inside out. As for me, I found comfort in small rituals. I still kept the notebook, not as evidence anymore, but as a reminder. Each new page held lessons, not pain. August 10th, the truth doesn't break you. It frees you. September 2nd, love survives when lies don't. Sometimes I'd see Vanessa's name in the local paper. Community service updates, legal follow-ups. I never clipped those stories. Some chapters don't need rereading. One morning, Ethan brought me a small box wrapped in brown paper. "Open it," he said. Inside was a new leather-bound journal with gold lettering on the cover. It read, "For new beginnings." "I thought you might need a fresh start," he said softly. I looked at him, really looked, at the tired but hopeful man my son had become. And for the first time in a long while, I felt proud. Not just of him, of both of us. We had survived something that could have destroyed us, and somehow we came out whole. That night, I sat at my desk, opened the journal to the first page, and wrote October 1st, "Forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's living without bitterness." Then I closed the book, looked out the window at the calm, starlit sky, and smiled. The lies were gone. The silence was gone, and in their place, there was peace, quiet, earned, and mine. A year later, the house didn't feel haunted anymore. The cracks in the walls had been painted over. The garden bloomed again, and the porch swing creaked with a comforting rhythm. It no longer sounded like loneliness. It sounded like peace finding its way home. Every Sunday, Ethan came by with groceries and a hug that lingered longer than before. Sometimes we talked about the past, carefully like touching an old scar. Other times we just sat in silence, letting the quiet say everything words couldn't. I'd learned something through all of it. Pain doesn't destroy you. It shapes you, and when you survive betrayal, you don't walk away the same. You walk away stronger, softer, and far more aware of who you let close. One afternoon, as the sun slipped low and the sky burned gold, Ethan handed me a letter. "From Vanessa," he said. "She wanted you to have it." I hesitated, then unfolded it. The handwriting was uneven, the words short and raw. "Mrs. Cole, I know you'll never forgive me, and you shouldn't. I lost everything that mattered because I thought money meant control, but you were right. Truth always wins, no matter how long it hides. I'm sorry. Vanessa, I read it twice, then folded it neatly and tucked it into my new journal. Not out of sentiment, but closure, because forgiveness doesn't erase what happened. It just means it doesn't own you anymore." That night, as I stood by the window, the cool wind brushed my face. For the first time in a long while, I felt free, truly free. I whispered softly into the quiet room. "You can rest now, Frank. We're okay." The clock ticked. The stars blinked awake. And for the first time, the house didn't echo with loss. It breathed with peace. Because sometimes the greatest victory isn't proving someone wrong. It's finally finding yourself right where you belong.